Children are all the same, no matter where you are, no matter what your cultural background is. Children need love and they need to be played with, and they thrive on the interaction.
A friend had reached out and had let us know that there was an opportunity to go and to serve at a pediatric therapy center in Northern Africa, to be able to use the skills and the knowledge that we have learned here and to be able to take those abroad. It was Megan and I, occupational therapists, and we had a nurse and a physical therapist as well. And we did hands-on training for therapists as well as didactic presentations.
Honestly, like, you could see they were hungry for the information and the support, and had a lot of questions. They have been there caring for these children, doing their best, but still had a lot of questions of how can we really support them in the most impactful way.
To see how many therapists and moms were there advocating for their children, it was really cool to come alongside that and to support them in that and just to kind of strengthen the team and strengthen the therapy as a whole.